This was like maybe 3 months ago. It's relatively new, but we just crossed 1,000 members, which I was happy about. You know, I was talking to Samantha Morrissey in the comments. Moriki, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's probably not a good thing that I got 1,000 members in 3 months, because it shows how many people are struggling and are trying to leave the profession. But there's also, and when you're like shooting in the dark and just kind of trying this antibiotic, trying this appetite stimulant, trying to see what might work, and the dog's not getting better and the owner's getting frustrated, you feel the pressure of that on you. It's on your shoulders, because you are the doctor, you are the veterinarian that's supposed to. So every week I would hit my limit for posting in groups.
Yep.
And I was talking to Sam about it, and I was like, you know, I might make my own space that purely is for non-clinical jobs.
All right, guys, look, we're going to do introduction just a second, right? But before we jump into this, Mark and I are having a lot of fun, and we're going to look over his bookcase because I want to show this off.
I was commenting on your bookcase and asking about the different books on your bookcase, and I just set this up recently. I need big shelves like you have, but on my top shelf are all my vet books. There's the James Herriot, Tell Me Where It Hurts. You know, I think there's The Truth About Animals, Appointment on the End of the World, and then my wife as a Funko Pop. Did I leave the stage?
No, I'm trying to set you. I'm trying to set you as the primary video because we got to show this off.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Like I got to show you off. I got to get you on big screen. I'm sorry about this.
At least from what I can see, we're split screen. Okay, now you're the main one and I'm the smaller one. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Okay.
I fixed it.
I was telling you, we use StreamYard for FlareVet, so I totally know what you're going through, because we've done that before, where we're like, we call it the Brady Bunch because there's like 6 of us on a call.
Yep.
And we keep
you got it shifted around.
The guy sometimes it'll like put us, and we're like, no, Brady Bunch, don't make the whole screen my face. But I have all my vet books, and then these are like my life inspiration. I have Jon Stewart, Barack Obama, Jay-Z, Andre Agassi, Andre Iguodala. Very wide ranging. I do
a lot of biographies in there. Bravo.
Yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff that doesn't really make sense together, but it makes sense to me.
No, you know what? There's somebody, you probably recognize the quote, and there's somebody I really respect, and they say, learn 10% every day. Take 10 minutes of your day and learn facts that just don't make any sense to you. And over the course of time, you'll start seeing patterns that you never recognized before. And it's this is like the next level, right? This is focused pattern learning, right? From successful people. It's a lot of fun. I'm loving that. By the way, so you're an acclaimed author?
I would not say I'm an acclaimed author, no. I've written like 3 blog posts, I think.
Okay, but you got some books. So I saw your LinkedIn content. You're active. You have a lot of passion, and that just screams. That just screams the advocate spirit, which is something I'm so attracted to, along with, I'm sure, like everybody else in the world, right? So I really appreciate you taking your time into jumping on this call with me and having some fun together. These books here are a combination of books that I've done podcasts on with, various people. And I do a little podcast with Alan Hill on business topics. So that's like 1/3 of these. And another 1/3 is just me showing off, probably, right? Because I want to read them and I want to learn from them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of books you want to get to, and you just have you'll get there, right? Because I always believe that the mentors, you started your mentor experience with the books that are written. Start with the classics and then understand the evolution of humanity, where we came from, to then kind of understand yourself and where you're going. And then the other 1/3 is just people that I so much respect that I had to get their books and to learn from and to share with people. Of course, you don't see my Terry Pratchett books in here, or my Stephen King or Lord of the Rings books, but they should be there.
Yeah, mix it up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to. The I keep some of those up home, and these are my go-to when I'm too focused. The wife likes to have some kind of connection to bring me back home sometimes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I need a bigger shelf. I was either gonna put like a diploma or like get like I kind of like what you have though. Like I like a horizontal shelf. I was
Yeah.
actually just did a call this morning with this guy named Amadeo Trado, who's like a COO of a small group of hospitals in Arizona, and he had one of the shelves with all the little trinkets and things, and I was like, I need something like that as my Zoom background. So I'm gonna work on it.
Yeah, you got to have some fun. Let's see. Yeah, no, I'm looking at it. So here's my problem. I put fun stuff in the background, right? For like some, like we did some IoT rings that measure your sleep and all that stuff, and some other IoT devices. And my kids steal them. So all the cool stuff I have up there, they think it's like their playground.
And now it's gone. Yeah, now it's like on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just about to say, yeah, look. And I'm like, no. That's obviously gone. Right. In replace of that, I have a little stack of peanuts the kids decided to leave me there. God bless our offspring.
Yeah. But you said something earlier. You used the word advocate. I use that word quite a bit, advocate. But I actually prefer what you said before we started recording. I'm not going to like repeat it word for word, but that I give a blank. And I think that's where we kind of, we're just meeting each other. We're getting to know each other on this.
Yeah, this is our first call together. So all you guys who think that we're like brothers,
it's our first call. Profile that you also give a blank.
Yeah. Generally, I would say that, and I will slip later on because it just actually comes out.
Yeah, I think it's more genuine. Sometimes, we joke, again, FlareVet is we'll get into it, one of my projects. And one of the things we've said from day one on FlareVet is that we're not this like super polished, sponsored podcast, and I think Bill, for the first time on one of ours, cursed. And we said from the beginning, like, we're probably going to curse at some point, that that's if you're looking for a super polished podcast, whatever, that we might not be for you.
It's not us.
We're really like that raw, authentic vibe is kind of what we're going for. So
I think people appreciate that, right? I used to have, so it's something I've been working on, right? It makes my wife nuts. My language is like, criminal, like a soldier, like I'm a sailor or something, right?
Yeah, right.
And so to get better at this, what I did, because I hate I don't like noises, like awkward noises. And it's just, a thing about me. I had for my first episodes of my podcast, I had a little tin can. And when I'd say a curse word, I'd throw some money in there. And, at the end of the day, I give that to the first needy person that I saw.
Oh, that was nice. Oh, I like that.
And it was fun. It's just a reminder to me. It was more like I didn't like the sound. I'm happy to give away the money, right? That's kind of like the fun part of it. So maybe I shouldn't tie it to that. Maybe I should do something, give it away to somebody I don't like. Wow. You know what? I'm already learning something with you.
It's more of a punishment that you're
Yeah. Punish yourself, right? Yeah. Don't make it fun. Don't enjoy your suffering.
I like it.
Nice. Tell us, okay. Obviously, I have so many questions and so many things I want to talk with you about. First off, tell me about. There's two questions. Like, what's more interesting for you, like FlareVet or this NCVC thing? Yeah,
NCVC is my thing. So I guess I don't know that I would say one is more interesting than the other, but NCVC is like that's Mark. That's my pet project that I'm in charge of, and it's a passion project because I was a veterinarian or am a veterinarian that didn't want to practice medicine anymore, primarily due to mental health concerns. We have a lot of most people, at least in the industry, are aware of now. We have an epidemic of mental health issues in our profession, and we have veterinarians that feel trapped. That and I think that unfortunately, trigger warning, a lot of times this ends up leading to, NOMV and actual, people taking their own lives. And it's really NOMV, not one more vet is this organization. And I experienced that where I'm a veterinarian. I don't want to do this anymore. But more often than not, people who become veterinarians, they've been wanting to be a veterinarian their entire life. Every single club I did, every single after-school activity, every single course I took, every summer, like I really only knew how to do one thing, was only qualified and trained to do one thing. So to realize that this isn't working and I need to try to do something else was, to put it lightly, an extremely challenging experience. And what I found is there really weren't resources out there for that type of person. They would tell us in veterinary school, oh, the degree is so versatile. You can get all kinds of jobs. You can get government jobs. You can get industry jobs. And then when it actually came to me trying to find those types of jobs, it was really hard to find them, to make connections. And so I kind of just did it. I just reached out to people. I got lucky. I made connections with people who ended up connecting me with other people. But there really was no place for someone to go to see what types of jobs are available, what the salary ranges are, what the job descriptions are, and to see them all in one place. And I got inspired by this guy named Sam Lane, who created a group. Covetrus laid off a few hundred people, or I might have even been more. It was a lot at one point. And Sam created this group called like Veterinary Community for Professional Resources. It was a play on the like VCPR, client patient relationship acronym. But he was posting all jobs. So it was like, clinical and non-clinical. And I was like, and I honestly, it got to the point where I was posting in that group so much that LinkedIn would say I wasn't allowed to post anymore. I got put in jail.
I've never heard of this. You're over a poster.
So every week I would hit my limit for posting in groups. And I was talking to Sam about it, and I was like, I might make my own space that purely is for non-clinical jobs. And so this was like maybe 3 months ago. It's relatively new. But we just crossed 1,000 members, which I was happy about. I was talking to Samantha Morrissey in the comments. Moriki, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's probably not a good thing that I got 1,000 members in 3 months, because it shows how many people are struggling and are trying to leave the profession. But there's also,
we're going to talk about that in a second, because I think people don't realize that. We're going to dive into that just
the mental health. But a lot of people are not clinical people that are trying to become non-clinical, which is really, that was more of why I created it. But what I found is there's lots of people out there that just either are in sales, in recruiting, in marketing, that want to be in the veterinary industry in one way or another. And so they find the group really helpful as well. So so that's a little bit the story behind NCVC, that's like I said, that's my personal one. FlareVet, I'm part of a group of people that are running FlareVet, but NCVC is really just me.
Okay, we're going to get to FlareVet in a second, but immediately, and I am kind of criminal to the charge I'm about to make fun of.
Yeah,
we don't realize how hard it is for a vet to do the job, because we all think, I take my dog there, he saves it, he feels great, and it's a beautiful thing, right? And this is
like there's not a lot of awareness around. And one thing I will add, this is something I've been trying to be better about recently. It's not just the vets, right? There's issues with the veterinary technicians, the front desk staff, the entire staff. We have issues with mental health. But speaking personally, being the veterinarian on the case and dealing with impostor syndrome and compassion fatigue, you're right. There's not a lot of public awareness.
Yeah. And let's just take a few seconds, not too much to dive into that. But I don't want people to say, darn vets are spoiled, right? Because it's not fair. It's super not fair. Because we have this image. I take my cat and my dog in there.
Because of how much the bill is, right?
Well, the bill is one thing, right? Okay, who cares about the bill? The bill, right? But there's a dark side to this job, which is people are like, hey, my dog is getting towards the end of their life. My cat or my iguana or whatever it is getting to the end of its life. It's suffering. I want you to relieve that suffering in a terminal way.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of vets suffer from this because it's like, that's not what they signed up for.
I will actually, believe it or not, for me and for a lot of it, not everybody, there's a lot of vets that is a big part of why they struggle with compassion fatigue or mental health is the euthanasia. But one of the things that I talk about when I talk about mental health and veterinary medicine, that for me was never.
That wasn't a challenge for you.
No, honestly, I viewed it, and I think a lot of vets, I've seen other people post about this. We view it as a privilege to be able to relieve suffering. To be honest, the cases that were much more difficult are when people don't want to say goodbye and they end up prolonging suffering.
Oh, yeah.
I would so much rather an owner bring me an animal who's dying of cancer and say, I want to euthanize, and deal with that grief and deal with that emotion and help
just
them
get out of the way.
Than say, I don't want to euthanize. And then they keep that animal alive, sometimes weeks to months longer than they probably should have. The animal's not eating, not playing, they're in pain, they're in discomfort, but animals mask pain.
And we're leaving out a lot of ugly details that some of these creatures go through.
Right. And so honestly, those cases, the cases where the client didn't want to euthanize, I found those much more difficult than the ones that they did want to euthanize, believe it or not.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm from your perspective, because I just imagine myself, like I told my wife, like, when we're married after 10 years, 20 years now, I'm like, baby, if I get, when I get, I don't say if, when I get Parkinson's or cancer, or I gave a whole list of stuff. And I said, here's what you got to do. You're going to go find a younger man. You're not going to worry about it. You're going to have fun. You're not going to babysit me.
Yeah.
Right. I was probably like 5 decades too early on that conversation for her, because she's still pissed off with me. Right. But it's the same thing, right? What would you want for yourself? And I love this approach. But not everybody's like that. And it's hard. Both sides are hard.
Yeah. They're both hard. Yeah.
They're both hard. I can't say like I appreciate one over the other. Like I wouldn't want either.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not many people know I'm an old soldier for a few years with some good stuff in my history. And I don't like any of it. Right. But there's things you love about the job, and there's things that haunt you. Right. And I love how that you have this recognition of you. I don't know if I'm making some assumptions, but this recognition that, it's for some people, it's not for others. Maybe there's stages.
Right.
How do you, if you had a philosophy, how do you handle this? How do you look at it? Because there's times you're strong, you can handle this. There's times you can come back to it. Maybe you need a rest. What do you think? Like from your experience, because you've done thousands of articles on this.
I wouldn't say thousands. I like you said, I'm relatively outspoken on LinkedIn, and I'm part of a couple different initiatives, and I do have my opinions. I want to go back to something you said though about the darker side of veterinary medicine. Like you said, a lot of things that people see is they bring their dog to the vet, they bring it for their puppy visit, they bring it for their vaccines, or even when they're sick. And there's the joke about, vets are just like get to play with puppies and kittens all day, and the darker side.
That's what we think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that maybe why you became a vet in the first place?
Right. But I would say for me, because a lot of people, not just you, almost every time I see things about mental health, I think we jump to the euthanasia thing as like, that's the thing that, vets are performing euthanasia. That's why there's this mental health crisis in the profession. Again, it's different for different people. For me, sure. I could list 10 things about the darker side of veterinary medicine ahead of performing euthanasia. I could tell you stories.
Let's list like 3 or 4 of them so that people have a little appreciation for it. Because it does sound like it's all flowers and roses.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is imposter syndrome. Especially for me, that was a huge thing. And I honestly tie imposter syndrome a lot with, I don't know what the right phrase would be, but this financial fatigue or, a lot of what it comes down to is there's really not insurance in our field. There's pet insurance, but the adoption is extremely low. So when you go to your doctor and your doctor needs a CT scan, they order up a CT scan, and the CT scan shows exactly what's wrong with you, exactly where the tumor is, and then they can aspirate the tumor and they can give you a definitive diagnosis about what kind of tumor you have, whether it's benign, whether it's malignant, exactly what organs have cancer, which organs don't have cancer. We do not, by and large, we do not have that benefit of like
try to get somebody's pet into a CT
diagnostics, right? So one, they have to pay for all of these services, and then that again, we could talk about just the friction between pet owners and veterinarians and the veterinary teams constantly going back and forth about how much things cost. Again, you don't really have the benefit of just billing everything through insurance. And then when you don't have the benefit of all of these fancy diagnostic tools, oftentimes as a veterinarian, you're kind of shooting in the dark where you don't really know what's wrong with the animal. You know what the top 2 or 3 differentials are, but a lot of it comes down to just purely your clinical impression and your clinical decision making. And that can really lead to a lot of imposter syndrome, which is what I suffered from, which is constantly second guessing yourself. I would constantly be opening textbooks. Nowadays, there's AI to help you, but I'd always have the VIN message boards and cracking up in my textbooks and second guessing every single decision I made. Again, largely because I didn't really have the benefit of having a definitive diagnosis all the time. To me, that aspect of veterinary medicine was way more challenging than performing euthanasias. Oftentimes, performing euthanasias, I used to joke about with my internship, when I was working ER, when there would be a euthanasia put on the board where like the owner was coming in for a euthanasia, we would fight over those cases. It sounds bad, but there's no paperwork because you don't have to write up your entire medical record about what the history is, what the clinical signs are, what your differential diagnoses are. You don't have to figure out. It's done decided. This might be IMHA. This might be, I don't know what's going on with this dog. I don't know what the right drug to use is. I don't know if we need to hospitalize this animal or not hospitalize this animal. With the euthanasia, they come in, you perform the euthanasia. It's sad, but we do become numb to it too after so many euthanasias. I would say most do. And there's no paperwork. So believe it or not, at least in my opinion, performing euthanasias was probably the least stressful part of my job. It was
what a strong statement to say. The easiest part of my job is something I became numb to, and for me, there's so much more terrible things to my job.
Different veterinarians.
It's not a critique on you. It's like with me. The industry.
For me, and some veterinarians agree with me, some don't. Again, it's different for different people. For me, I was so much more stressed out about the 8-year-old dog that hadn't eaten in a week than I was about the 14-year-old cat that I was euthanizing who was super, super sick. I don't know why this 8-year-old dog won't eat. I did blood work. The blood work wasn't really that exciting. It's not really pointing me in any direction. The owner can't afford to do an ultrasound. So, okay, my blood work is showing mildly elevated liver values. I don't really know if that's explaining why the dog won't eat. All right, let me just try to do sub-Q flow is an anti-nausea injection and see if the dog gets better. The dog comes back in 3 days. It's still not doing well. All right, now we really need to talk about maybe doing an ultrasound. All right, I can't really afford it, but let's do an ultrasound. We do an ultrasound. The ultrasound still doesn't really point me in any one specific direction. It doesn't rule out that there's not infiltrative cancer, like not an actual tumor we can see, but maybe there's infiltrative cancer. Do I need to aspirate the spleen? Do I need to look for lymphoma? Like, I genuinely don't know what's wrong with this animal. I have it on appetite stimulants. I have it on anti-nausea medicine. The owner wants me to just give them.
And all these things are traumatic for the dog and the owner because maybe the dog is reacting, maybe it's diarrhea. The owner
they paid me $85 for the exam. They paid me $300 for the blood work. They went to the specialty center and paid $500 for an ultrasound. And I still don't have an answer for them. And now they're annoyed because now they're like, I spent all this money. I brought my dog to you. You're the veterinarian. Why can't you tell me what's wrong with my dog?
Yeah, why don't you have a direct phone with God to tell me what's wrong with my dog?
Those cases.
What's your problem?
Those cases were so much more difficult than performing euthanasias. Again,
this is anxiety, right?
I had crazy anxiety over these types of cases. Yeah,
I have a similar anxiety on software development sometimes.
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, we're going to step outside of our bounds of normal stuff. We want to try this and to work this. It makes sense. Okay, I think this will make sense. Let's go ahead and try it. Right? $2,000 in, we're like, okay, we tried it. This solution doesn't make sense. And despite all their marketing, everything they said that they could work from it. Right? For me, it's a little different because, you're kind of seeing what's out in the world, and there's false marketing. For you, like, people expect you to be like mini gods or something to.
Well, they also they think, I know, and again, this is just, they think that our hands out are like CT machines, right? Like, veterinarians, one of the things that makes veterinary medicine special and makes it unique is the physical exam, because our patients can't talk. And I mean, it sounds simplistic, but when you go to the doctor, you say, I have pain in my right lower abdomen, and they're like, oh, maybe he has appendicitis. The dog doesn't say, I have pain in my right lower abdomen. So, we are using our hands and palpating and feeling, and we're listening, not that a physical exam is not important in human medicine, but I would say the physical exam is even more important in veterinary medicine. But I think people think when they go to the vet, they see us perform a physical exam and we're talking them through our differentials. I think they think that we are able to tell more than what we can. And also with blood work, a lot of people have this misconception that blood work tells you whether or not your dog has cancer. That is not what blood work tells you.
There's a lot of stuff you can do with blood work, but there's so much blood work you can do. So many labs.
And again, there's advanced panels, but even
tens of thousands of dollars, worth way more than you spend on your dog.
Yeah, the blood work tells me, are the kidneys functioning? Is the liver functioning? It doesn't tell me whether your dog has metastatic disease. It doesn't tell me whether, there's so many. And so I think people get frustrated. Okay, now I did blood work. Now I have to do an ultrasound. Now I need to do a CT, an MRI. And again, if you, the human, went to the doctor and you needed an MRI, you get an MRI. It's not, not like to get an MRI on a dog, you're talking $3,000 to $5,000. Not a lot of pet owners are willing to spend that on a diagnostic.
And top of that, you can, I go to my blood lab occasionally just for personal checkups, right? Yeah. Some of that blood work is $10,000.
Yeah, we can't charge that. Yeah, right.
Right. But if you say to the client, we can do a basic blood work package, it'd be $200, or I can do a very basic one for $80 and kind of get a look. They're going to say, do the $80 one.
Do the $80 one.
You can't even say there's a $10,000 package. You'll tell like which viruses your dog probably has. Right. It's going to take 2 months to come back.
Yeah, if I want to do a PCR, right? So it's $300 to do a CBC chemistry, or $250 or whatever it is these days. Just for baseline blood work. And then like you said, if I want to identify the specific pathogen that you have, that I can pick the right antibiotic or find the exact virus to do a PCR. Sometimes these PCRs are $500. There's not
any doctor would do for a kid.
Right. But there's not a whole lot of people that are ready and willing to spend $800 on blood work for their dog or their cat. Again,
and they'll tell you
by and large, they're paying it out of pocket because not a ton of people have pet insurance, right?
Yeah, it's very. What do you think? Like 5% of your clients?
Yeah, it's.
I looked at it like 10 years ago. It was like, I think it was like $3,000 a year.
There's a vicious cycle which is happening, which is the cost of medicine is going, not just veterinary medicine in general, but the cost of medicine goes up. A lot of this also has to do with the corporatization of our industry, that we could do an entire podcast on.
We'll do one on that one.
Corporatization of veterinary medicine. But by and large,
so many sponsors on that.
By and large, the cost is going up. For you to bring your dog to the vet, it costs significantly more than it did 5 years ago, significantly more than it did 10 years ago. So
have our expectations of the magic.
And your expectations and the level of medicine. But so what ends up happening is the pet insurance premiums are also going up. So now, because the premiums are so high, people don't get pet insurance. So now when they come to the vet, they're not getting any help. So now they have to pay out of pocket, and the costs are really high. So you end up in this vicious cycle. The costs are high, the premiums are high, people don't get pet insurance, and then they go to the vet and the costs are high and they can't afford it. And then they decline diagnostics, and then the veterinarian is just basically throwing SHIT at the wall to see what sticks. And the owner is frustrated, the veterinarian is frustrated, it's difficult. It's just a difficult situation.
It's a lot of pressure.
There's a lot of pressure. And again, we're doing our best here. Nobody went to vet school because they wanted to make a lot of money. People went to vet school because they wanted to help animals.
Yeah.
And when you're like shooting in the dark and just kind of trying this antibiotic, trying this appetite stimulant, trying to see what might work, and the dog's not getting better and the owner's getting frustrated, you feel the pressure of that on you. It's on your shoulders because you are the doctor, you are the veterinarian that's supposed to make the dog feel better. And you're not.
If you're a little empathetic, you're stressing for the person that's probably sitting there crying in front of you.
It's
going to go home and cry.
Honestly, it's tough. And this is not to say that human physicians do not have it difficult as well. I mean, they go through all different kinds of extreme.
I know a lot of physicians, they will never deal with kids.
Yeah.
I dealt with today. I tried to get an eye doctor for my 5-year-old just to check him out. And the people that we deal with kids say, no, we don't deal with young kids.
They're very specialized.
Yeah, they're specialized. Just like the dogs. They can't talk for themselves. They don't express themselves well. I say this, they don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Same problem. Like, how do you talk to somebody who can't talk?
Veterinarians face unique challenges. I'm not saying that it's harder than being a doctor. There are unique things about veterinary medicine that make it difficult.
Well, yeah, and of course that you're just not dealing with human biology. You're dealing with like all kinds of stuff.
Well, yeah, that's the other joke. That
have you ever had somebody bring in a hamster or something?
Oh, yeah. And so that's a whole other discussion, that I hate, this quote people find this quote offensive, but it was a joke in veterinary school that, quote unquote, real doctors treat more than one species. When you become a licensed veterinarian, and I had friends in medical school that would say, Mark, there's no way that you're actually supposed to know about dogs, cats, horses, goats, sheep, cows, guinea pigs, hamsters, dolphins. And I said, the weirdest thing? I remember that there were chicken questions on my board exam, and cow questions, and goat questions, and dog questions, and cat questions, even though I only wanted to treat dogs and cats. So yeah, if you want to go see what my boards look like, you have to know. Now,
that's under the definition of a veterinarian.
We could get into that, but no, it is stressful. And again, that's another thing that the public doesn't quite understand. I would have people that would want to bring me their guinea pig, and especially as a new grad, I didn't really feel comfortable seeing guinea pigs, and so I would refer them to a guinea pig veterinarian. The guinea pig
pigs
veterinarians,
for
the exotic veterinarians are really expensive, right? It's really expensive to see a specialist, and so they would be frustrated with me. What do you mean you won't see my guinea pig? And I'm like, listen, I'm just trying to get down dogs and cats right now, because even dogs and cats are very different. The anatomy and the physiology and the different types of diseases that a dog gets versus a cat gets. If you want to throw guinea pigs and lizards and birds into the mix, it's like, bird anatomy is very different than dog anatomy.
Birds are basically dinosaurs. Come on.
And I do think, again, there's this public misconception behind, a lot of people think that veterinarians are, a lesser version of a doctor. I've had people say, oh, it's like, you're not a real doctor. Most
what's a real doctor? Somebody I could come in with like a cut off arm and you could sew it back together.
I think it has gotten better over the years, but people say, Mark, that doesn't still happen. It happened to me multiple times in my life.
Okay. Tell me your scariest story about somebody who came in.
I have a couple stories, actually. People say, oh, Mark, you're exaggerating. Well, not really.
I believe you. I bet you are, especially criminals.
I had to get a physical before veterinary school. I was in college. I forget exactly what it was. I think I needed a physical to get certain, what it was? I might have been getting vaccines when I was studying abroad. I think maybe that was it. And I went to the doctor. Abroad? I ended up going to South Africa. It was amazing. Again, that could be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear about your trip to South Africa.
Oh my God, it was. But anyway, I checked in, and the receptionist was, I don't know, she was asking me questions, and I said, yeah, I'm actually going to veterinary school next year. And she said, oh my God, is that like a mini doctor? So that was one story. And then so that's my less crazy story.
You're like the mini-me of Dr. Evil.
Yeah.
You can do little evil, but not real evil.
My more crazy story is that my mother is a veterinarian, very successful veterinarian.
Oh, so you're like generations?
Yeah. Both of my parents are veterinarians, but my mother is a veterinarian, very successful. Her brother is a radiologist. her sister is a physical therapist, and her other brother is a dentist, and her father was an obstetrician. And when my brother and I were in high school, in college, and we were deciding that we were also going to go to veterinary school. My brother's a veterinarian as well. My grandmother said to my mother, you know, your boys are so smart. Why don't they want to be real doctors? So like when people tell me that,
and this is where that imposter syndrome started kind of kicking in.
Well, it's just in general. I think there still is to this day, not everybody, but I think there's a disconnect with the public's perception on the level of medicine, that it's somehow different. That I've heard people say, literally, I've had a client where I've said, I really think your dog needs a CT or needs an MRI. And they're like, what are you talking about? Why would you? I didn't even know they would do an MRI on a dog. I didn't know that was even a thing. And I'm like, well, you know, it is medicine.
They have organs and stuff.
They also have organs, right? Correct. So, but I think people think that now, again, the level of medicine certainly can be way more advanced for certain things in human medicine, but like,
yeah, I was going to ask, like, what's the difference between like a obstetrician versus a vet? And do people expect you to have like all these specialties?
Well, so that's part of it as well, that your veterinarian is supposed to be a jack of all trades. And so there's also people don't love when you refer people to a specialist, for instance. They're like, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a veterinary cardiologist or a veterinary oncologist. But, you know, think about.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I went to break something. Like, you got to go see this. I'm like, you're a doctor. Why can't you solve my problems?
I'm like,
right?
You know, it's
never mind for a pet.
Enough to know the basics about dog and cat anatomy and pathology and treatments. Now you want me to know about all the crazy things that a boarded surgeon needs to know, or a boarded neurologist, or a boarded cardiologist. Yeah. I mean, it's like, crazy. And I
can't understand why my dog is looking sideways. Like, can't you?
Or like, my dog has a brain tumor. You want me as a regular vet to handle your dog that has a, you know, I actually worked at a specialty center when I was an intern, that I remember that we actually, during my neurology rotation, we did brain surgery. Like, he literally went in and I was like, that was new for me. I hadn't seen that quite often. Most often when we diagnose brain tumors in dogs, it's like, all right, now we're just going to treat as long as the dog is comfortable, do hospice care, and then euthanize. But there was one that had a benign mass that the neurologist went in and resected the mass. Like, we legitimately did brain surgery, which I think that's relatively rare, you know, but there certainly are clients that, especially nowadays, people view their animals the same as they view their children, right? Like,
sometimes they like it better because they don't talk back.
They don't talk back.
Yeah, they don't talk back. So sometimes parents like their pets better.
But yeah,
I mean, I have so many questions, right? Like, immediately, I'm not going to ask, but it comes to mind, like, what's the difference between a dog brain surgery and a human brain surgery? I'm not going to get into that, but
it's not. That's the point. I used to make this analogy all the time. The difference between dog anatomy and physiology and human anatomy physiology is largely that dogs have fur and they walk on 4 legs. Like, the anatomy of the heart.
Would you say the same thing for a cat?
Yeah, and for a cat as well. Yeah, but the anatomy and physiology of the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, it's largely the same. And I think people are also surprised. I remember I had one client, I prescribed the dog doxycycline because the dog had a URI or whatever it was. And they said, wait, I've taken doxycycline. And I'm like, yeah, it's the same drug. And they're like, you treat dogs with the same drugs that they treat people with? And I'm like,
are you saying like everybody making fun of Joe Rogan for his horse medication?
Yeah. Oh, the ivermectin? Yeah.
Yeah, right. What are you saying? Is that for people too?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the drugs work the same way. Now, a lot of times the doses are different, and certainly there are drugs.
Well, a horse weighs
more. Don't give your dog Advil, for instance. Like, Advil can be toxic to a dog. But if you look at like anti-inflammatory medications in dogs versus in humans, they work the same exact way. You look at antibiotics, you look at immunosuppressants, like, the drugs are working the same exact way. They're attaching to the same receptors. They're working on the same organs that function the same way with the same types of cells. Again, the difference in dog and cat anatomy and human anatomy and physiology is really not that different. It really isn't. And I think people they're surprised by that.
Yeah, this is kind of surprising. Oh, wow. we're starting to run out of time. We have
we got
7 more minutes, and I haven't even touched the breadth of the conversation I want to have with you.
We can do another one if you want.
We have to. We absolutely have to. Right. I am sorry that if I wasted your time today.
No, I didn't know. This is fun.
I was having so much fun. Okay, look, let's talk about FlareVet for a second.
Yeah, FlareVet.
And we have like 6 minutes. I will come back to you and ask you for another call.
Okay, that's fine.
But tell me about FlareVet.
Okay, so FlareVet was was Jonathan Gonzalez. He's a veterinarian. He's based out of Texas. He came up with this idea. He named it FlareVet because when you light a flare, it's like an SOS. It's a call for help, essentially. Okay. He said, our profession is in trouble, right? We have veterinarians are committing suicide. There's, there's this mental health epidemic. Again, not just with veterinarians.
Yeah, so 911 isn't cutting it. We need
the staff,
like rescue rangers.
A major problem. People are leaving the profession. We talked about with NCVC, right? That we have major problems in our industry. And so he came up with this. I want to create something like FlareVet is my name. And he said, there's a lot of people with podcasts. I want to do something more of like a live streamed conversation. He compared it to the Pat McAfee show for any like sports fans out there, where he wanted to get different experts in different areas, get us all on a Zoom call and post it live where people could come to the call live and they could comment in and ask questions. And he approached me and a couple other people that were like really active on LinkedIn and we're like, yeah, let's do it. And so actually NCVC and FlareVet were born around the same time. And so once a month we do these calls. I think we've done 3 now, where we bring in like a guest who's like an expert in a certain area of veterinary medicine, but we try to, in some way or another, to tie it back to mental health. So last month we talked about AI. AI is like the new cool thing in veterinary medicine, but specifically talking about how can we use AI to help solve some of this mental health stuff in veterinary medicine. And again, I was one of those vets. I spent hours and hours writing my records and writing extremely detailed records. I would stay after my shift for 2-3 hours writing up all the cases.
Because there's so much anxiety around, like,
I had a lot of anxiety around writing down every single thing. And
when the owners come back and ask for a autopsy, right, which they do a lot, right? Like, do you justify yourself? What a pain in the butt. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I can.
Well, so anyway, but no, I mean, my records were like a written autopsy of every single conversation I had, to be honest. That's how detailed I was. So if we have AI that can help with some of that burden, AI is listening to our appointments and writing up detailed summaries for us that we can just proofread in 5 or 10 minutes.
Rather than recommend some quick cuts out there based off your
20
experience.
to 30 minutes to write up each case. That can be a huge help. We've also, we had another episode where we talked to a veterinary social worker and what that's like to be a veterinary social worker, to work with the teams.
I can imagine trying to pull pets out of homes.
Or it's not even, so veterinary social workers actually more dealing with grief. So a lot of times they work in the animal hospitals and like these euthanasia appointments. Like one of the things I've seen veterinary social workers do is if they have young children that are really struggling with euthanizing an animal, that the veterinary social worker will meet with the parents, meet with the children, help them through that process. But they also, veterinary social workers, work with the teams, the veterinary teams, to deal with some of the difficult situations that they're dealing with. So anyway, so FlareVet was, again, it's just an initiative. It's free. There's no money changing hands. There's no corporate sponsorship. It's just, we take experts and we get them on a Zoom call once a month and we live stream it. And we actually have not a big following, but we have usually a handful of people that come live and they can ask a question live. And then we can answer the question ourselves, like me or John or Suzanne or Adele or Bill, the like leadership team we call ourselves, or we can pose that question to the guest that came on. It's relatively new. Like I said, we're a couple months old.
Yeah. You got a few episodes going.
Some traction.
Yeah, good for you. This is needed, right? Obviously, there's so many questions like how to help kids get through the passing that you just talked about. It's one thing if you take it into say, hey, we're going to go say goodbye. Another thing when you have to say goodbye after the fact. Whole lot of questions in there.
Yeah,
that's so interesting. Hard questions.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question, and this is more on the business side, right?
Okay.
and you can just say, Phil's none of your business. I see you posting an incredible amount of content. I'm jealous, right? I can't like think as fast as you're posting, right? Like I'm serious. Like today, like in the past 5 days, you have what, like 1,000 posts or something. I'm exaggerating a little bit, right? But like,
yeah,
how do you do that?
Posts in 5 days, but I'm very fortunate. I do get, I'm not like an insane amount, but I'm very fortunate that I get good engagement. Where I'm very lucky that people actually are like liking and commenting, and I go back and forth in the comments. I think when people say like, "Oh my God, you're on LinkedIn all the time," I think they see me responding to things in the comments or commenting on other people's posts. So no, I do quite a bit, maybe more than I should. I don't know.
I'm not going to say that. I was looking through your post and stuff, and I was like, wow, this energy is next level.
So what was the question? You said you have a business question.
That was it, right?
How do you like? What am I doing? Why am I on LinkedIn so much?
No. Well, no. It's like, how do you get this engagement, right? For me,
yeah,
like, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. They're starting a podcast. They're starting an app. They're starting some kind of tech business, right?
Yeah.
How do they get that kind of engagement and flow going?
My recommendation is to be as real and as vulnerable as you possibly can. So where I broke through on LinkedIn is when I started talking about my own personal struggles. Like, I see this a lot on LinkedIn when people say the top 10 best things for SEO, or this is what veterinarians need to do to get more patients, or whatever. People are not clicking through on that type of thing.
You don't care about facts.
When I posted, I was a veterinarian and I wanted to kill myself, and this is how I got through it. That was the post that got like a ton of engagement. And then I kind of leaned into that, right? Like, okay, I was a veterinarian that was suicidal, who found a new career. This is how I did it. This is how I made connections in the industry. This is how I use AI to help relieve mental burden. This is how I'm trying to help other veterinarians with their own stressors or issues. And these are the different initiatives I'm part of, and blah, blah, blah. And then once I got a little bit of a following just based on being vulnerable and telling my story, now when I post, hey, I just did a demo of this guy's software program that I think is really cool and I think might be able to benefit hospitals, like more of a business post.
Yep.
I feel like I still get decent engagement because I feel like my audience knows me as a person now.
Yeah. They're seeing
leading with vulnerability, I think would probably be my number one recommendation.
Okay, perfect. Look, first of all, I thank God that you were not a successful depressed person, and that
me too. Yeah.
Right. So from my heart, thank you that you fought through these challenges. Thank you for coming on the call with me. Yeah. I am going to ask you to do another call because I am so curious about your thoughts on the branding, personal brand, what personal brand means, for example, right?
That's new for me. That's only been the last, I would probably say, year has been me attempting to, like, maybe I am going to try to build a personal brand. So
I think you have built it from what I see. And I don't think you have to, I think this is authentic. The authentic person doesn't have to try to build a personal brand. They have to
I agree. I think that's what I learned. I think maybe at the beginning I was trying too hard as opposed to letting things come to me type of thing.
Yeah. And I want to dive deeper into that if you allow me to one day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I put my little tag. I think you can see it on the StreamYard. The digital DVM is that's a relatively new thing. I actually posted a poll, and I came up with a couple different names. And I posted a poll to my followers. I know it sounds weird, but the people that follow me on LinkedIn. And I said, I want to start a personal brand, and these are the names. And the digital DVM won in a landslide. So that's my personal brand now.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to give two questions. You can take them both and carry them away. Please define what a digital DVM is, and any last comments to the audience.
So actually, I was thinking about this the other day. That I realized that people were going to interpret it that way. So truly, the digital DVM is me. That was the original name, was I am the digital DVM. I'm a veterinarian who has a passion for technology, a passion for software, and I consult with animal hospitals and software companies on how to best utilize software. But then I was thinking, people are going to think it's like anybody could be a digital DVM. So I actually kind of like the double meaning.
Like the diva, digital veterinarian Mark?
Yeah. So I am the digital DVM. You hire me to help you better utilize technology, but in hiring me, maybe I turn you into a digital DVM in your team. So it kind of has a double meaning, I think.
I like it.
Not intentional. That's not intentional, but I'm going to lean into it. Yeah.
We're going to call it intentional. This is thoughtful. This is intuitive because.
But it's how can you as a veterinarian and a veterinary team utilize software to make your life easier? How do you focus on the things that matter? Patient care, right? Having those one-on-one, face-to-face conversations with owners and not having to worry about, oh my God, it takes me forever to make a treatment plan in my software. It takes me forever to make an estimate. It takes me forever to write up my medical notes. Like, how do we relieve that, make that easier, make that simpler so that you can get back to what's actually important and why you became a veterinarian or a veterinary technician in the first place? So that, to me, when you say, what's a digital DVM, that is a digital DVM.
I love that. And, Mark and I both kind of share this value where there's so many layers to this. And you start somewhere, and every layer you peel back, it improves your life. I bet you are seeing that when you help your customers, your friends, right? Because they become friends. Anytime you help somebody with this kind of stuff, they become friends. So you help your friends, even though they're paying you, that it improves their life. It changes their life layer by layer. And over time, you free people by using technology. And
absolutely, like, maybe they don't need me anymore. I meet with them a few times. They don't need me anymore. But oftentimes, like you said, they become my friend. And then 5 years, 3 years later, they reach out and say,
they're ready for the next level.
Project. Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? I finally said, I don't want to carry your thunder. People, go to Mark, that you will see that you peel one level, then it's going to take you some time to relax and to realize your gains. You go to the next level. Yeah.
No, I think and when we do the next call, I want to learn more about you. We talked about me this whole time, but I feel like you're
the interesting one here.
We view technology, we view software utilization, like we talked about even before we started recording. You can make an amazing piece of software. If the teams don't understand it and know how to use it and know how to leverage it, it's worthless, right?
That software can walk on water, but if it can't carry you, it's not useful.
Ooh, I like that. I haven't heard that. If it can't carry you. Oh, cool. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. I'm dark, right? So I want to not swim, but I want to make it easy.
Yeah. No. Yeah, we should definitely do another call for sure.
I can't wait. Look, thank you, Mark. Absolutely amazing fun with you. Just do me a favor. I'm going to end this call.